Section 6.7, this is about simple interest. You've heard this probably talked about before in some form or fashion, but interest is basically money paid or earned for the use of money. If you go to the bank and ask for a loan, they're going to say yes, but you have to pay back interest. And basically you're just paying for the money you're borrowing. What you typically borrow or what you deposit to the bank is what we call the principal. And what we do, there's two types of interest. What we're talking about today is called simple interest, and it's the money paid or earned only on the principal. In other words, I'm only getting money based upon what I borrowed or what I deposited. There's something that you will later learn called compound interest, and that gets that's not going to be this year. I think you'll probably pick up on that maybe in Math 1. But compound interest gets really complicated really fast. Simple interest is literally what it sounds like, very, very simple. All right. And there is an equation that comes with simple interest, and it's I equals PRT. I like to remember it as this. I is pretty. I like saying it this way. I is pretty. All right. The I is pretty equation is what helps you with simple interest, because I is pretty, and I sure am. I is pretty. I represents the simple interest. P represents the principal, how much the money you're borrowing or how much you're depositing. R is your annual interest rate. This is in decimal form, so this is your percentage in decimal form. And then T is time, and notice what it's got, years. Very important there. Time is always in years, okay? Now, so let's go ahead and hit some things up here. Questions here. It says, an account earns simple interest. Find the interest earned. Find the balance of the account. All right, so we got two things happening here. It says that we have $400 at 7% interest for 3 years. So what it's asking for us is the actual physical interest that's being earned, and on top of that, how much we actually have in the bank. So if I were to put $400 in the bank for 7% interest for 3 years, this is what was happening. First off, I need to do I is pretty. So my interest, after I put my principal of $400 at a 7%, which would be 0.07 for 3 years, the interest that I accumulate is going to be 400 times 0.07 times 3. I accumulate an interest of $84. That means that I have $84 more. So that's literally my first part. Okay, that's the actual interest earned. B is the balance of the account. Well, you started with $400 and you earned an additional $84 after waiting 3 years. So how much do you have in your account? $484. You still have your 400 plus your additional 84, so it's 484. All right, pretty simple on that one. I'm not going to normally, I want you to try number 2 on your own. I don't normally, so number 2. Number 2, same question. It's asking us to find the interest earned. So I need to do I is pretty. I is pretty. My interest on my principal of $1,200 when deposited in the bank for 4 years at a 0.056, that's my decimal of my percentage for 4 years. Let's find out what that's equal to. Basically, plug it into your calculator. What's a calculator? 1,200 times 0.056 times 4 gives me $268.80. So that is my interest. So that's how much money I earn. But altogether, after that 4 years, I have a total of $1,468.80 at my disposal. That's what's happening here. I had an interest, percent interest. This is my physical interest that I had accumulated. This is how much I have after those 4 years. All right, now, find the annual interest rate. And this is literally giving me, I got I have P, I have T, it's asking for R. So basically, I'm gonna start you off on this. I is pretty. I is pretty. So I'm gonna plug things in. I is 18, P is 200, times my R, I don't know what that is, times 18. All right, so we need to simplify this. 18 is equal to 200 times, we have a problem. So as I started to simplify this, I noticed a mistake. I made a big mistake. I was actually about to multiply all this out, but here is a problem, and let's see if you can figure it out. I told you a while ago that my definition, and it was very, very important, and even I showed it that it has to be scratched out in years. I even proved it. The time in this particular case is 18 months. So I cannot multiply this whole thing by 18. This is incorrect. I have to change 18 months into years. So let's think this through for just a moment. We know that there are 12 months to a year. So how many years is 18 altogether? Well, if there's 12 months to a year, we can do a little bit of a simple thought process. This is actually a year and 6 months left. Well, how much is 6 months? Well, that's half a year. So really, this entire thing is 1.5 years. Now that I have this correct, I can go ahead and simplify this equation. 200 times 1.5 is going to give, not minus, Mr. Lewis. It's going to give me 300 times R. All right. Now that I have that, I am going to divide by 300 on both sides. And I get 18 divided by 300 gives me 0.06. Now, that is my percent in decimal form. I want to actually change this into a real percent, remembering I can move my decimal places. This is actually going to be a 6% annual interest rate. And again, this was easily one to mess you up if you were not paying attention to the time here. All right, let's do the next one. I have I is $310, P is $1,000, and T is in 5 years. Hey, that's cool. This one we don't have to worry too much. So we can go I is pretty. So my interest is 310 times 1,000 times my rate times 5. We can simplify this equation. The 1,000 times 5 is 5,000 R. So we're going to divide by 5,000 on both sides. And I get 310 divided by 5,000 gives me that my rate is 0.062 is equal to R. Or we can change this again to our actual percentage to 6.2%. And we're done. All right, this next one is asking us for finding the amount of time. And in this particular case, we have I, P, and R. So why don't you try these on your own? Basically, use your I is pretty equation for both of these and plug things in and solve for T. What you should have got for these is that 2 years and 6 years. You know how to find me if you have any problems, so please ask questions. All right, number 7. You put $500 in the savings account. The account earns $15.75 simple interest in 6 months. What is the annual interest rate? So basically, this is what we know. We know that we're putting $500. This represents my P. The account earns $15.75 simple interest. This is my I. And then it tells me 6 months. Well, remember, time has to be written in years, so this right here is actually going to be 0.5 years, or a half a year. And what it's asking for is my annual interest rate. It's asking for R. So basically, it's saying, let's use I is pretty. I equals P times R times T, and we're going to solve for everything. So I'm going to put 1575 is equal to a principal of 500 times my R times my time of 0.5 years. All right, so if we were to simplify the sides, I get 15.75 is equal to 250 R. I'm going to divide by the 250 on both sides. And when I do, I get that R is equal to 0.063. And to finish this completely out, let's change this and move our decimal 2 times, and I would get that the actual interest rate is 6.3%. All right, let's look at the next one. You borrow $600 to buy a violin. The simple interest is 15%. You pay off the loan after 5 years. How much did you pay for the loan? All right, so we got a couple things happening here, but let's just go label some stuff. You borrow $600, so that is your principal. The simple interest is 15%, so this is your rate, and you pay off the loan after 5 years. So, and it's asking how much do I pay? So really what I know is I know my rate and I know my time. Let's use our I is pretty and plug in the things that we know. We know that we have a principal of 600. We know we have an interest rate of 0.15 because 15% as a decimal is 0.15, and we know our time to be 5 years. And so if we plug all of this in a calculator, 600 times 0.15 times 5 is equal to, make sure I got that right. Yes, is equal to $450. So this is saying that you have a simple interest. The actual interest is $450. So did you pay $450 for that violin? That doesn't make sense. It says that you had to borrow $600. But you're paying back $450? No, that's not what's happening here. Not only are you paying back the $600, but you're also paying $450 just to borrow the $600 to begin with. So if you were paying the bank, you actually paid the bank a total of $1,050. This is how much you paid for your violin. Yes, you only had to borrow $600, but because you did that simple interest was at 15% for 5 years, you had to pay that violin that only cost $600. You actually had to pay $1,050 for. So that was a pretty big markup. And this is actually the reason why I wanted to do this problem. This is actually a big reason why credit card companies love people borrowing money from them, because they can charge you a lot of money for just borrowing a little bit of money. I'll give you a little story here and then I'm gonna go. I remember a long time ago, I actually bought a video game, Mario Sunshine, for $60. I forgot to pay. Interest continued to accumulate, and they called me up about 4 years after I had bought that game. 4 years have gone by, and I forgot to pay it off. And that $60 game cost me nearly $2,000 due to interest and compound interest charges. So guys, there's a moral to this little lesson here is be careful when you borrow money and make sure that you're watching how much you're paying for. So that's it for this video. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.